That's right. Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And we just got a new Pixar movie. It's an original concept, a totally new world. Not a sequel. People should be excited for it. For some reason, they're not. We're here to break it all down. It's the Elemental Spoilercast. All right, Dragon. Well, I'm going to start off by saying I like the movie. I like it just fine. I definitely think it's got some issues. I think it's pretty. I'd say it's solidly mid-tier Pixar, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, considering that like I would say it'd probably be like Pixar has what's the count up to now, Dragon? About 30-ish.
Well, I believe it's 27 films. I think this is technically the 27th film.
Okay, so it's like, I would solidly put this like in my top 20, which is not, it's not like this definitely isn't like top level Pixar for sure, but I think there is a lot to like about this movie that we will get into. Dragon, the elephant in the room though is that Pixar is just not in a good state right now, and I don't want to seem hopeless about it, but
Things are troubling right now in Disney overall, but Pixar is now is starting to absorb a lot of the Disney spillover of the trouble they've been facing with the animation division.
I mean, this is definitely the most worried that I have ever been about the state of Pixar. I'll put it bluntly like that.
Well, folks, I mean, we were going to kind of save most of this for memoirs, but let's just say something's happened at Pixar that I'm not thrilled about, and it does concern me. I won't lie.
Dragon, I am so worried for Pete Son.
Yeah,
I think he's next. I'm genuinely worried.
I mean, optimistically, I would say we can't like clean house in such a way like two times, but I don't know.
Well, yeah, like you said, Dragon, we'll definitely like get into the layoffs and stuff when we get to memoirs, but just talking strictly box office, man, it is depressing. I mean, literally, this is the worst performing Pixar movie of all time. I believe even adjusting for inflation, I believe it technically even made less than the original Toy Story, even counting for, if you don't adjust inflation on the original Toy Story. Like, it's right around that area. So,
well, you got to remember, Toy Story still was successful. It just wasn't like game change. It was like, I mean, made
but I'm saying like adjusted for inflation, Toy Story's numbers look a lot better than they are.
Yeah, sure. That's what I'm saying. When you look at it when it came out, like, yeah, this is great.
Exactly. And I'm saying nowadays,
folks, we need.
And more. Nowadays, it's like like what? Like I'm bad at math. Almost 30 years later, 28 years later, we are looking at something that literally did the exact same numbers, not adjusted for inflation. It's not great. I don't want to dwell on this at all. I just think it's an elephant in the room that we need to bring up.
It's the big one in the room.
And frankly, I kind of blame the marketing, Dragon, because honestly, one of the big things that I really do like about this movie is the themes that Pete Son brought to the table with the the immigrant parents and everything. And I think the parents in this movie steal the show, and I would be willing to bet that you agree with me on that. And while the parents were definitely present in the marketing, I don't think that the marketing was very much going for, romantic comedy. And well, I do think this movie, at the end of the day, it does count as a romantic comedy. I would call it that. I don't think it's like manipulative to say that. But Dragon, I think what this movie should have been marketed as, and I really didn't hear this comparison at all. Like, I mean, maybe you heard it. I don't know. Maybe like I just don't think it was emphasized enough, because I think it's a really good selling point. This is essentially Pixar's Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
People have been saying the whole Guess Who's Coming to Dinner,
and I'm saying that's the angle they should have leaned on with the marketing. Anyway, so Dragon, I know you don't really feel like getting into the box office of it all, but how are you feeling about the movie itself?
So yes, Elemental. This is Pete's own passion project, and I just want to take a moment amidst all the stuff people are saying about Elemental. I just want to highlight. I'm so proud of Pete Zone with this movie. I'm so proud he was able to tell his story and like kind of join the directors' ranks. So like all the directors were able to put like their passion projects that really kind of said something about who they are out there. Because think about it, Pete Zone has directed a feature before, but it wasn't a feature he started. It was kind of like a Ratatouille situation with
Mhm.
the Good Dinosaur. Only the results weren't nearly as great as Ratatouille. It was just a matter of the fact that he was just kind of put on a project, but wasn't really saying anything. That it wasn't like something he came up with and he really brought to the surface. Like Inside Out's a personal story for Pete Docter. It's about his daughter. You have so of course, The Incredibles. It's very much Brad Bird and his family to a degree. There's a whole lot there. Onward, for example, most recent example. Onward. I think recently with the new era of Pixar, we've really the directors have been able to give voice to personal stories for them, like Dome Shi with Turning Red and such. All of our directors have when they've been given their bite at the apple, they've been able to kind of like say something about who they are, about their story within the context of the film. We allowed Pete Stone to finally do that, and I think the elements that dive into that for him, I thought were perfect and beautiful. So it's a nice romance that I find is compelling. I think it's well executed, but the heart of the film is absolutely the immigrant story and the passing of the torch, the literal passing of the torch story. But yeah, that's the thing. There's a lot of that's what I'm saying. A lot of this movie, like some of the best Pixar films, as they do, they hit me in a personal place. They always kind of at least the one moment in the Pixar films, especially the recent ones, have been kind of like they've had like a singular moment that's kind of like get you. It's kind of hit you right in that soft spot that Pixar knows where to hit me in. And this movie definitely had that in places. And I admit I do have some quibbles with this movie. I do. Um, if I'm stacking against the other Pixar movies, it's not going to stand shoulder to shoulder with its finest. But still, there's a lot of really good stuff there. I feel like in kind of the new era Pixar, even having compared. I think Pixar for so many years has been bulletproof, and I think in the recent years, like Onward. I'm not saying, I guess maybe not starting with Onward, but I kind of hard to place. Like for me, I don't want to just say Turning Red, but I think technically Luca because it's kind of like the acts get better as it goes on instead of just being kind of solid from the very start.
Mhm.
So somewhere around there, it kind of noticed like a little bit of like I've had qualms more than I've ever had with Pixar films. Than without factoring in stuff like and everyone's always harsh on stuff like Cars 2 and The Good Dinosaur. And I think there are arguments
Well, I
made.
mean, you know me. For me, it started with Incredibles 2, and that's kind of like that's an unpopular opinion for you, but
So my point is, it's funny. Sorry, real
what?
quick. For Father's Day, I rewatched both Incredibles movies.
Yeah, I mean, they are very solid Father's Day movies. I'll
I
give you
gotta tell
that.
you, man, Incredibles 2, you watch it just you get sucked into it, man. I don't know. It's like
It's a good
obviously
movie. It's a good movie. It's just not a great movie.
okay. Anyway, so my point is, I don't know it's just like stuff. I've been having more qualms than usual. I think this is not like a reflection of like this should have been far better. I don't know. It's just kind of where we're at right now with the Pixar films. I just think we're just kind of like it's just kind of like I don't know if it's kind of a shift in the culture in which we're making the films or not. It's still great and has the Pixar standard of quality that I expect. It just still I don't know. It's just kind of like if you kind of break down like three eras of Pixar, we're in the third era. It's a little different. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we're in a weird kind of. I feel like we're in a weird transitioning point because obviously, like we've been post Lasseter for a while.
yeah,
Like for a long time, Lasseter was the one steering the ship, and I I kind of feel like Pete Docter. I love the guy. Obviously, he's made probably the most elite Pixar movies in my opinion. But I just don't necessarily know if he has the same sort of command of the ship. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like I feel like Pete Docter's strengths are very much more in the creative side of things.
yeah. But to the marketing, the box office thing, before we dive into the film and the stuff that accompanies the film, I just want to say that for sure, though, I think it's less a reflection. I keep hearing the whole, the worst grossing Pixar film and everything and all that sort of stuff. But I got to tell you, man, I don't think it's necessarily a marketing. I don't think you're wrong with what you said in terms of like, maybe we should have. They absolutely should have showcased more the immigrant story aspect of this film. You're right, but
I
here's
also feel like a lot of the humor in the trailers, like if you remember when we did our trailer breakdown, I was very impressed with the animation. I was
yeah,
very impressed with, a lot of the set pieces. What I was not a big fan of was the humor, and I feel like the humor is probably the element of this movie that I am the least thrilled about, and it is very much kind of what they pushed to the forefront with the advertising.
there's one joke, there's one running gag throughout this movie. I feel was maybe a miscalculation, and it's kind of a thing. It's like you can't really like table to the side. There's like a whole sequence in the movie dedicated to it, so it's kind of a thing where I feel, given it even a second bite of the apple, we maybe should have altered that, all because we want one specific plot point. We have to put this through from the beginning. So that one we'll get to that when we get there. But here's the thing. Your points are right, Tiki, but it does occur to me that this film, no matter what they did, the immigrant story or the rom com or what have you, this movie is going to be a very hard sell for the non-animation geeks like ourselves. Okay, this is going to be very hard for a general audience to kind of go for.
I also feel like the general concept, like Zootopia, kind of stole its thunder a little bit.
I mean, in the world building, this movie is not necessarily about like we're not exploring the every ounce or every crevice like we are with Zootopia in terms of that setting, that world. It's a factor in this, of course, but it's more about the people than is the world building itself.
Dragon, really quick, I want to acknowledge Code Geese Anime Fan. Welcome, welcome. They say it seems like recent Disney Pixar animated films are struggling to do well at the box office, with Elemental being a big example. Yeah, indeed. And Dragon, this is very much a factor. I think this is a big factor here. Releasing Elemental only 2 weeks after Spider-Verse 2 was a big mistake. Dragon, the very person that I wanted to come on and talk about this with us, Erin, who's only come on once so far, but she's a big Pixar fan. Dragon, specifically the reason why she said she wasn't going to rush out to the theaters to see this was because she had already seen Spider-Verse 2, and she doesn't usually go to the movies every other week. She likes to space it out. So it's like just using Erin as like an example of like the casual audience, not necessarily the animation geeks, but someone who is a fan of animation, but not someone who's going to rush out and see every single animated movie. Yeah, Spider-Verse 2, I definitely think took a big, even though we'll get into it, I very much think there are elements of Elemental, like animation-wise, that are very impressive, but unfortunately, Spider-Verse 2 just casts a very big shadow.
A couple things. One is I want to highlight. We're going to keep saying elements throughout this whole thing.
I know. Well, you know what? Just let's just acknowledge pun not intended every time we say elements. All right.
Okay, so I just wanted to call that at least once. Okay, secondly, but yeah, that's the thing. I mean, there's a lot going on in terms of release with this, because you have the Spider-Verse is casting a shadow over all the animated films this year. Sadly, it's just going to happen. But the other thing too is that this kind of knocked itself out between this and the Flash, and both in the shadow of Spider-Verse. There's a lot. There's definitely some competition.
It's kind of funny how like the Flash got knocked out because the Spider-Verse's like multiverse superhero thing, and then this got knocked out just because groundbreaking animation. It's like a 1-2 punch with Spider-Verse.
But you see what I'm saying, though? No matter what, even in the marketing, which, I mean, I think the marketing was at least, like, it was an honest look, like, okay, this is the stuff that's in the movie, but yes, we could have leaned the immigrant story more, but at the end of the day, though, it's less the marketing issue I've been having with the Disney movies.
You know what they really should have done if they really wanted this to work? And it would have been a bold move, but I really think it would have potentially gotten butts in seats if they made this the first PG-13 Pixar movie and really focused on the romantic comedy elements.
I mean, sadly, I think you're right, but it's a shame
that would have at least made it stand out, right? That would have at least made it be like, oh shit, this is Like Pixar's doing something they've never done before. We need to see how they handle this.
You gotta wonder though, are they gonna save that trump card for for a specific movie down the line? If they're like, is that a move of desperation, like you're suggesting, or is that a move?
Dragon, I'm saying they should have played that trump card now.
I know
This was their move of desperation.
Well, I guess that's the thing. Like, do you think they're actually waiting on that for like they have a movie that's planned? Like when we do this, it's gonna be a big dramatic thing. We only get one.
The only other thing I could see is like maybe Incredibles 3, but Incredibles 3 doesn't even really need that as a trump card.
Well, sure, I mean, like if they do like an original, like again, we keep talking about that black and white detective movie. If they ever do that,
they're never gonna do that.
Yeah, because Brad Bird's doing it somewhere else. Won't be black and white, but he's doing it somewhere else.
Let's see. Code Grease anime fan. Oh, Code Geese anime fan. Yeah. Also says there's another animated coming out in 2 weeks called Ruby Gilman. Dragon, you're not stoked on Ruby Gilman. I am actually pretty sold on that one, especially given the recent DreamWorks output. I am pretty stoked on that.
I mean, look, there's being excited for DreamWorks' output, but then there's looking at that trailer, and that trailer just
I don't know what to tell you. The trailer to me looked really cool. Like, is it Puss in Boots: The Last Wish levels of like groundbreaking animation? No, but it's some really cool character designs.
I just mean it looks like almost. I mean, look, out of context, it looks like a step backwards to what DreamWorks was doing back in the early days. Like,
you're honestly not wrong. Out of context, it does look like maybe stylistically a step backwards from the 2022 output. But anyways, I digress.
It looks like, hey, Little Mermaid parody of sorts, or like, I don't know.
Like I said, the thing that sells me on that movie is just the character designs. But anyways, let's see. It also Kogi says it seems like there's never PG-13 animated films, only G, PG, and the rare occurrence of R. You know what? They really should just make Beyond the Spider-Verse PG-13. I think if they did that, it would only increase the hype.
I mean, the closest we've gotten to PG-13 Pixar was kind of the off-the-books Pixar thing with Borrowed Time. That's,
Which was more honestly kind of R-rated. Like, that was super dark.
It was. Okay.
So, before we get into Elemental, we better talk about the short drag. It was so fucking refreshing to be sitting in a Pixar movie and actually get a short again. Like, tell me that didn't bring you back.
You know how long it's been since we've done that?
Let's see. Let me try and figure out. Was it Incredibles 2? Was that the last time we did that?
That was the last time we had a short. Yeah.
It wasn't Incredibles 2 a Disney short.
No. We had Bao. We had Dome She's Bao. That's
what right. Okay. A short that I would argue maybe overshadowed the.
Oh, come on!
I'm sorry. I couldn't resist.
Can't we just enjoy things? Why?
Anyways, okay, but yes, that was 2018, right? So, God, it's literally been 5 years since we've had a Pixar short in theaters.
Yeah, originally this was supposed to be released on Disney Plus with, I guess, per the rest of the whole Doug Days stuff, and they kind of decided, like, no, let's release it theatrically.
You know what? I think paired with this particular movie, I honestly think it really worked and actually maybe elevated it.
Yeah, I mean, for many reasons. I mean, one, I like on kind of a behind the scenes level. It's like, hey, we're pairing together kind of our up creatives here. We have Pete Sohn, who's the inspiration for Russell, and we have Bob Peterson, who's directing and writing. The whole short, and obviously voicing Doug. So a little kind of mini reunion there. Even if Russell's not in the movie, he's directing the movie.
Right.
But yeah, also the fact it's somewhat of a Carl's date. I mean, obviously it doesn't very smartly. It doesn't go like full on like romance per se, but it's about kind of like it's about kind of the dovetail ending of the romance that we had in Up. And
so the smartest thing that this short did for me was the fact that we barely know who this woman is.
Yeah, it's like Mrs. Myers. All we get from her, she's Mrs. Meyer, and she owns.
She's a fellow dog enthusiast.
Yeah, and she adopted Alpha. That's all we know about her.
And that to me was so smart. The fact that we don't, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't hear her voice over the phone, right? We just hear Carl's side of it.
I mean, if anything,
It's like a little like
it's a little hard to tell because remember we had Alpha on the line go with the high pitched
Oh,
voice.
right. We did have Alpha. Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
kind of hard. I think it was a one-sided conversation. Then we only heard Alpha. But
Right,
if
right.
we heard anything, I'm pretty sure it was just Alpha. I don't think we had any female voice. So yeah, we only heard like maybe like, oh, hello, Mrs. Meyer, and that's about it.
And then ending it where we ended it, and then obviously, like, I mean, right from the get go, Dragon, as soon as I heard Ed Asner's voice, I was just like, my heart, my heart. I
I
can't
mean,
take it.
I mean, unless they're squirreling any more unless they're squirreling any more of these Doug Day shorts away that we're not privy to, much like this one, then yeah, this is absolutely the last time we're
There's
hearing
just
that.
like a big Prince vault just filled with Doug Day
Yeah,
shorts.
you joke about that. The word is they're going to release that documentary soon.
Oh my god.
Anyway, but yes, but yeah, this is presumably the last time we're hearing that.
I am honestly treasuring it. I mean, like,
The thing about
you
it
and
is the
I, we've
last
had a
thing.
long road, like, with our fandom of Ed Asner. It's literally been like one of the genesis points of our entire online relationship. So
Second podcast we ever did.
indeed. So yeah, man, I gotta tell you, like, I'm still kind of emotionally reeling from hearing what is probably his last performance.
Think about what would go out on though. Like his last line is addressing his wife and Ed Asner giving just an exceptional performance. Like in his last moments, just this beautiful kind of speech about moving on and what his wife meant by like having an adventure and like
Uh-huh.
kind of the ill defined. A little epilogue kind of like
You did call the ending, by the way.
that. I did. That I did. Mr. Doubt over here, like nothing but like, oh, they're defacing the Mona Lisa. What are they doing?
Ironically enough, the whole short I feel was kind of like a meta call out of people like me who are like,
Mhm.
no, he can never move on from Ellie.
Yeah. Forget all the widowers must
I
suffer.
know, right?
No widowers, no happiness for you.
Oh my
No.
god. So yeah,
You know what
Doug
your
Day,
date
or
is? You're
I'm sorry,
going to the grave. You're
yeah.
going to the grave for your date. The
So
Rocky
Carol
date.
State overall delightful, and like I said, very very well paired with Elemental, like thematically.
Oh yeah. Okay, now on to our feature presentation.
Okay, so yeah, the opening, man, is just genuinely fantastic.
Yes, yeah. So we open on the immigrant's jury from I believe with our Irish family. Basically, a lot of fire puns, obviously, a lot of puns overall throughout the film, but again, not entirely just like hey, distract with the puns, just like puns that make sense within the illogical logic of the
Well,
film.
like I said, I feel like the trailer made it seem like the movie was going to be more like that than it was.
Yeah, I mean, here's just like things that make sense. Or, okay, well, we're gonna call these people Firish. Okay,
Uh-huh.
where are they from? Fire Island. Okay, that makes sense. So we Bernie and Cinder here. We have like the immigrants journey. Now in real life, again, so the idea is the whole thing with the parent. Basically, Ember and her parents are essentially Pete Stone and his upbringing. So essentially,
Mhm.
we have kind of like Pete Stone's Korean. So we're kind of I think broadly because we have like uh, Ronnie Del Carmen, who's a story man extraordinaire. He's worked on Batman animated series as well as Up and all sorts of stuff in the story capacity. He's wonderful. He voices. It's one of the examples of a scratch guy. We have like he probably did all the scratch in the story for Bernie, and they loved him so much they made him the main voice for the role. And he is Filipino, so it's kind of so we're kind of just kind of reaching from I believe a lot of subsects of Asian culture, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I heard it was definitely kind of like a whole kind of like subset of Asian culture, which I think
Yeah.
is really interesting. It gives that, like, I like that because it makes it not just like a one for one, like
Yeah.
racism allegory.
Yeah, like it's not just it's not just like it's not just Korean or anything, but it's
Mhm.
again it's kind of broad space. It kind of makes it an everyman sort of thing. So everyone with a different kind of journey can kind of like kind of plug into it.
And right off the bat, with giving them, like the names, because the guy like legitimately cannot understand how they were pronouncing their real names.
Yeah,
I mean, that is some Pixar feels right there,
I
man.
love it. And that's the thing. So Pete Sona, like when his family immigrated again, he was raised in New Yorker, so I imagine this is purely the Ellis Island experience.
Mhm.
It's the kind of stuff we see in Godfather Part Two. golf up ball
Yes.
two.
Yes.
Where Vito Corleone, it's a misunderstanding with the customs guy. It's like a Vito from Corleone. Okay, so Vito Corleone. So we see. I kind of called this too in the trailer. I called the class system. We do see that at the top of this movie.
Yeah, yeah,
The
for
idea
sure.
that the fire is a destructive yet vulnerable element. So we're seeing fire, which again is very much discriminated against, but because it is destructive. So we're seeing the fire in a vulnerable state as they're going through and kind of trying to find a home that's being denied at every which way. And
I love that. I love like the challenges of like they are at again. It's like basic Pokemon logic, right? But like they are at risk to as far as like if they come in contact with water people, the water people put them in danger. If they come in contact with the earth people are put in danger. Honestly, Dragon, the cloud people throughout this movie are just kind of chilling.
that's the thing, and so that's the thing. So the cloud people are kind of above it all. So it's kind of like if
Right,
you look at
right, exactly.
it's also really cool. I did not expect this, and this is really good that we had like this little thing when we're doing the Ellis Island sequence, and we see like this kind of mural on the wall saying, essentially expositing in a visual way that okay, the water people were here first, and then the earth people immigrated.
I really like that real building. That was cool. Generally, Dragon with the real building, I do think it's done very well. I will say I really love the real building of building out the fire neighborhood.
Yeah,
When it comes to the overall Element City, I do think it's not like I definitely don't think it's as well realized as something like the Land of the Dead or Zootopia or a location like that. But it is definitely very visually striking.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. We're not. It's like we're not taking advantage of the full real estate, but we don't necessarily have to for the story that we're telling. So it kind of
Because the
makes
main
sense.
story is that neighborhood,
Yeah, that's
and
the thing.
that
So we
neighborhood is very well
we
realized.
only really go to two neighborhoods out of the bunch, and the fire neighborhood is neighboring the earth neighborhood, and we kind of go to like kind of like a sports things where that kind of gives a little bit of like the leisure of kind of our wind people.
Uh,
So here's the thing. So a couple things to factor in there. So I like that water and earth are the first ones there because the logic, kind of the logical logic here being okay. So the earth is mostly comprised of water and earth. So water, 75% of the globe is like water. So in looking at that, that means that's why the water is kind of the first ones there, and that's why they're very much kind of like the rich elite. It's like they're driving the big fancy boat, which of course causes our main dilemma of the film. The Earth, Earth is very much like the prevalence of the neighborhood and everything with the land development. And again, you'll notice Air is kind of in middle management. Air is just kind of above it all. Air
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
essentially,
Basically, yeah.
like not City Hall per se, but in conjunction with City Hall.
I also like that. I like kind of like the internal logic of like Pete Son has already done a short based on clouds. We're gonna kind of not focus that much on the clouds. They've already had their time in this
That's the
film.
thing. Where again, it's kind of like the episode from the cloud thing is maybe the inciting kind of the light bulb kind of
Uh-huh,
nature of it
uh-huh.
there. So that's good. Also, again, I like that because Pete's on being a New Yorker, it's sort of like a little bit of a Chinatown district that we're saying with the fire people. So that's kind of cool too.
So, Dragon, I mean, this is like I think probably the one big component of the trailer that really sold you, and I think it's very well realized. The fireplace as a location.
I love the fireplace. I was loving the fireplace because of the connection to Pete's Zone and seeing it realized, and I love in seeing Ember, she's born and seeing her like do everything Pete's gonna do, or she's like saying that she runs the store, she's going to run the fireplace someday. All that's from real life, but in addition to just that was like one of the main reasons I was jazzed out of my mind for the fireplace. But in addition to that, it's just this again, all the world building, the logical logic, the fact of okay, well, if you ran a fire convenience store, what would you have? And it's like okay, so we have like wood chips and and like coal and like all these like coal foods and everything that you make. And there's like a little neighborhood community and like the fact they live, the whole place is made of brick, which is where a fire would be housed. Like all
Mhm.
this is wonderful. I'm loving all this.
The sparklers.
The sparklers and the whole like buy one get it, the whole like buy one. I just want the free one.
Dude, that whole scene in general, I literally leaned over to my grandma and I was like, and that is why I don't work retail.
Sure, that's the reason.
No, I mean, pretty much just people like that, honestly. I cannot. Dragon, let's just say the Ember stuff in terms of like front facing, dealing with the public in a retail setting, very, very relatable to me.
But speaking of the relatability there, yeah, it's great that we're seeing a lot of like Pete Stone pulling from real life, I'm sure, and dealing with customers. Because here's the Pete Stone's main job as a kid, again, as a kid growing up in his family's Korean grocery was essentially making sure people didn't steal. That was like what his main task was, and again, it was kind of a fruitless thing where he can only do so much because he's a kid. But essentially, it was sort of like he just kind of keep watching the place, and they give him, But anyway, so that's so I don't know. It's kind of nice seeing all those customer interactions. They feel so authentic, and for that reason. So again, as I mentioned, Brian Del Carmen as Bernie, man, he's a loving father. This is the thing that melted my heart, and the thing with Bernie, in which he's his loving father. He has this kind of the sad story of how he had to come over after his previous business was destroyed, and he's kind of grooming his daughter to take over the family business. And the bit that just guts me, and the way that Pixar knows how to do, is like we're seeing the weakness in our parents. We're seeing like that the big whooping kind of ashy cough.
Dude, the way they animate that, I mean, and how prevalent it is and how it gets worse throughout the movie.
I know that's what I'm saying. The fact that he needs to retire, but he can't, and like those little touches are the bits that like that's I can relate to that story.
I feel like that is like ultimately like people are saying like the stakes in the movie are weak because it's basically just like they're dealing with like with all water leakage, which is true as far as like the stakes of Pixar stories. That's it's not the biggest thing in the world, but that is where the stakes are, though. The stakes are very much with like this man needs to retire.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I love that in this film, we kind of play with the expectation of what the stakes really are in terms of, okay, so you're on this movie, you're thinking, okay, so it's going to be us, especially the experienced Pixar audience, we're expecting, okay, well, maybe it's going to be a thing where like, is the shop going to be destroyed, shut down, or is it not going to be? And ultimately, we grow past that in the best of ways here, which would like, okay, so it's not a question of if the shop's going to get destroyed or not. It's purely the emotional stakes that are attached to the shop, and you get to a point in the movie where it's like, okay, we're absolutely safe from this place being shut down. It's a question of like, when we give our character everything she wants, and she's going to have to make a big decision, like that's really good.
Yeah, totally.
So design work, for our elements, of course, the animation and everything. As I mentioned, there's a logical logic here that's the water people essentially live in glass structures. Our fire people live in bricks, and the way we animate, just the idea of like controlled flames. They have like the blue flame, which is of great cultural significance to our fire people, and
the way that the glass blowing.
Yeah, that's what's really impressive too. The fact that she's making glass, it's a big plot point, and so yeah, it's the fact of all the fun things you can do with fire. And so this is funny. So Pete Stone has been asked about this a lot, in like I guess the press tours and everything, about the Avatar: Last Airbender comparison. He made it very clear. Look, I watched that show with my kids. They loved it, and I think it's great storytelling. But I love that you get a sense that he's also a fan of that show too. It's just, no, look. That show has these qualities. We are not doing any of that here.
Okay? Like I said, Dragon, when I think of the way that the elements interact in this movie, I more think of like the Pokemon thing, if anything.
I mean, yeah, a little bit. That's there.
Like, kind of like the rock, paper, scissors quality of how that logic works.
Well, yeah, the whole thing is, I remember we were all watching at least early Pokemon, I guess playing the games, early Pokemon, the idea, okay, so the rocks are immune to electricity, but not to water.
Right, exactly.
So if we douse Onyx in water and that Pikachu will like that water. Yeah.
Good times.
Back in the simple days. I can feel like Brock's brothers are holding me back. No, they actually are holding me back.
Dude, wasn't Onyx a cool design?
Onyx is an amazing design, Tiki.
All right, anyways.
Anyway. So,
let's before we get to Wade, because I know we need to get to him. Dragon, there is one character in this movie that I really couldn't stand. Like, he's only
I know who it is. I'm gonna guess it.
It's what?
Claude.
Yeah. And I just to be clear, we're not talking about our good friend of the channel, Claude Coringa.
Yeah, then again, he could show up a little more and say hi, but I was saying, like, look, I tried tracking him down for years and nothing, so maybe a little
No, well, to be fair, we are the reason why he,
Not we, not we.
yeah, right. So Claude, I hated this little kid. I couldn't stand literally every, like, he's only in 3 scenes, but every time he was on
I
screen, it was
understand.
excruciating.
Here's why Claude's in the movie. He's the rom-com throwback. That's why he's in the movie. So she's purely a trope. He's a nod to a trope, Tiki. That's the only reason he's in this movie. That's why so
What is he, the romantic rival, or?
No. It's like remember that movie Snow that we both like.
Yes.
Tom Cavanaugh. Remember he had like the kid who was I'm blanking on the actor's name, but
Oh yes, I know exactly what
and
you're
very
talking
briefly,
about.
and
Yes, yes.
even Snow did this very well, which they succumb fully to this trope. At the very beginning, you had him in that romantic comedy trope of like, I'm hitting on our main hero guy's lady friend.
Right.
Because I think I have a shot with her, and they're doing the rom-com trope.
I just the whole thing about him growing the armpit flowers. And,
I agree. I'm not crazy about it, but I see what they're doing. But I do question all the same. Do we need to do it though?
No, we don't. I honestly think the reason why he's in the movie from like a utilitarian point of view is we need at least one named character from every element.
Well, we have the Fern guy though. We have a Fern Grouchwood.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, and I love that guy.
Okay, let me tell you the actual reason. I was joking about most of the other stuff, but here's the actual reason we have Claude. Okay, we have Claude because we need at least the logic of the movie is we want to reaffirm the whole elements don't mix thing along. But then again, the mother says it too. But it's kind of we need to reaffirm elements don't mix. So she's turning this guy down romantically, mainly because he's a kid though. It's not really like because if he were an adult, then it would have been insensitive. Like, oh man, she's kind of bigoted. I don't know if that's really cool for a main character to be a bigot like that.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true.
So that's the main reason, like Claude's in there. But if the mother's gonna make the very on the nose point, not on the nose bad ways, like it's part of her character, the whole like elements don't mix. Grandma on her deathbed said, "Don't marry."
You know what's funny is that like the trailers very much gave the impression that the mother was going to be the one who was very anti-Wade.
Yeah.
With the whole like, what a guy.
What a guy.
And then like I kind of got the impression based on the trailer that like Bernie was going to be the one who wouldn't have that much of a problem with him just because of like the gag with the food.
Yeah.
But it ended up kind of being the other way around, which was funny.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the man of the hour.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, Dragon, when he first comes out of that pipe and he's just like over the top, like crying. Eventually, I warmed up to that character trait, especially when he's around his mother. I feel like when he's around the mother, like him and Catherine O'Hara, that dynamic with the crying, that's great. The crying game, great scene. It's a little bit much for a first impression of a character.
I got to admit, Tiki, the thing I was alluding to earlier, it's the crying runner. I don't know in terms of look, I get the whole reason we have the crying runner is it's twofold. It's two very specific moments. We have Ember cry and we have Wade's revival. That's why we have the cry in there. Those are two reasons. But aside from that, it's not so much that he cries or that he's like an emotionally touchy-feely guy, because that obviously contrasts Ember in a nice way, given she's very kind of closed off emotionally, and he's very open with his emotions. We see where his mother gets from. Like having to cry occasionally in there, that's fine. But Tiki, we literally have a whole sequence of like there's the crying game. This first entrance.
Okay, this is where you and I are going to differ.
It's just the fact that it's like all
the idea of the crying game.
Well, it's not even. I'm just saying.
I thought that was a really clever idea. My problem was how it's like. I just thought it was just a lot right at the top with his character.
Well,
like I said, it did not really make a good first impression, but
it's not even so much that it's not an issue with the crying game sequence. It's just the fact that we have crying so much throughout the movie with this character and our water people. Then we get the whole sequence where and it's nothing but crying. It just feels it's not a problem with that scene because where it gets us out.
Like I said, I think the actual fact that they make a game out of the crying, like I actually thought like at that point in the movie, I thought that was a good way to kind of like legitimize it as kind of like a like a part of their culture. Because if you think about it, like the crying is basically like a physical disability on their end.
I mean, I guess you're kind of right with that, Runner. I guess.
That's how I read it. It's like I read the crying game as them essentially like, like making light of a bad situation.
I guess that's fair. I don't know. Maybe it's because we don't have any water people really aside from Wade, because only he and his family cry, and I don't know if it's like an affect that just the populace has.
Yeah,
I mean, again, this is a quibble. The crying thing's a quibble, but it's just the fact there's a lot of
it. And like I said, it is especially a lot when that's literally the way you're introducing the character. Do you agree with me there? Like it was a lot, like up front.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the idea, like him crying at like the happy family photo is one thing, but he's like crying throughout the whole. I don't know. It's the fact he's crying throughout that whole initial exchange.
I honestly think it would have worked better if they would have gone the more traditional rom-com route where he was more apathetic and just concerned with doing his job, and then once he got to know her, he started to cry a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just kind of feel like just him coming out, like it basically made him feel very needy, like right from the start, which is not a good first impression for a relationship.
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing, though. It's the fact that, again, like most rom-coms, I suppose, we don't, it's kind of a meet cute that then builds into romance. So it's an earned romance versus just like, and they're instant. It's not a Hallmark movie, They're not like, okay, very much in love or very much telegraphed. Like, okay, even despite this initial like, I don't like you, meet cute, you can see it like within 5 minutes, like, oh yeah, these two are going to be together by the end of this thing. Oh yeah, that's going to happen.
So let's talk about that, because honestly, Dragon, I'm a little bit mixed on this myself. How good do you think the chemistry in this movie is?
Honestly, I do think. Well, it's kind of funny we use the term chemistry because they literally kind of change it.
Yeah, again, there's a lot of wordplay in this review that we're gonna have to say pun not intended.
Look, I really do think there's chemistry there. I do think that the fact that I think the relationship is earned because they initially don't really. They're not romantic at the start, and there's not like hints that like he likes her per se. But it's the fact they have like an exchange and they're just kind of saddled together, and over the course of the movie, we do see like them kind of like just kind of hanging out. I think we do see like a spark actually form. I think it's believable, and I think it's believable. And I think it does build. However, our kind of low of lows moment is I don't necessarily. It's kind of a runtime thing almost in terms of like we just kind of have it. We have it ill-timed, perhaps. We kind of need it somewhere in there. We need it to happen kind of at the big moment of her character.
I would honestly be impressed if this movie subverted it and just didn't go down that route. I really would be.
But then again, Tiki, it's so weird where we're at now and things, because how many times we have the trope and then we have the subversion of trope, and sometimes we just have our characters. They're either going to mope around during that low of lows, like she's left me, I'm just going to mope around, and then we're going to the airport scene, versus where it's like, okay, so the subversion here, it feels like, is okay, so we ordinarily would just have him mope until that airport scene, basically until the climax of the movie, but no, he's going to say, hey, I'm going to call you out right now, so that's what I'm saying. It's kind of darned if you do, darned if you don't, so it's kind of, I don't know. We're just kind of at a point with the rom-com tropes where we've literally done it all, only now we're animating to it.
Yeah, and you know what, Dragon? I got to be completely honest with you. I don't necessarily think rom-com was like the best direction for Pixar to go in, just generally speaking. Partly for what you said, just because it's such a tropey genre. Like, I almost kind of have the same issues with this movie that I have with Monsters University, in that like it is a well executed story and it has heart, and generally I do like this movie a little bit better than Monsters University. But like Monsters University, again, my problem with that movie, much like kind of like some of my issues with the plotting here, is a lot of that movie just felt very arbitrary. Like, oh, we basically need to hit the plot points of a college comedy. And I don't know, like I get that Pixar can be tropey with their storytelling and make it work. Like, look at The Incredibles; that's a great example of that. But I don't. I feel like when they go too specific with the formula, sometimes it can kind of go off the wheels just a little bit.
I mean, you look at Monsters University. The third act of that movie saves it from any of the
Absolutely,
frills.
yeah.
And I think to a degree, not to the same degree as Monsters University, but to a degree here, when we do have kind of our like essentially our matchstick moment, which we'll get to soon. When we do that, we I think we do elevate kind of the romance, and we do kind of shake it up a bit. And I think overall, I mean, with just the choice of a rom com, it's that I don't entirely disagree. By the same token, though, Teague, is the fact that I don't I don't want to discourage Pixar from leaning into romance, because it's a genre they've done really well with in terms of natural romances, but also in terms of like,
Well, I'm not saying they lean away from romance. You could see. I think it's very possible to have romance and not do a romantic comedy.
yeah, that's the thing though. So by
Like,
the
for
same
example,
token,
Ratatouille is kind of like, if I were to quantify Ratatouille, it's kind of like an indie dramedy.
well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's. Well, I don't know if I don't want to break that
It's
one
got
down.
some indie vibes, man. I don't know. I think it's got some indie
Well, no,
vibes.
I get the indie part. I'm just talking about the
The
dramedy thing.
dramedy, I don't know. I'm just saying, it's like I wouldn't necessarily qualify that as a romantic comedy, but but those indie comedies very much have romance in them, but you don't necessarily quantify them as romantic comedies. That's what I'm saying.
Right, right. I don't know. Again, I feel it's like maybe it's because I said maybe I'm unaffected by rom-coms because I've seen so many of them. Maybe that's perhaps I don't know if that's like somehow it's kind of like either helped me or hurt me in this, but I don't know. Regardless, let's see. So our dilemma in this film here. So again, so essentially, Wade he's burst through a pipe. He's been sucked down after Ember kind of like loosens the pipe. So that's why specifically the shop gets affected. She loses her temper in there, trying not to stress out Tiki during the big red dot sale.
Yes, yes.
It wasn't so funny that one guy brought, here, I want all these red dots.
Oh my god.
Anyway, so yeah, so we have this, chase through, chase down the city hall and everything. And I do question the whole like. I'm not sure how I feel about after all that. He's on her side after stopping and hearing her, but it's right after he sent the thing up there that feels a little yeah.
So yeah, there are some plot points like that and some pacing that I kind. Generally, Dragon, I feel like the pacing of this movie is a little off.
Here's the thing: I really want to see the movie again because there's one element of the arrangement of events that does perplex me, but only because I haven't seen another time to kind of like the passage of time. Because look, even if it's a relationship within a week, I think I still buy it because again they didn't like each other from the start. But however, it feels like if I read it right, we get we get the stay of execution with the we get the stay of execution and basically get the shop like the whole like threat to shut down the shop, and all the tickets are dealt with. And I think after that point they're allowed to date and stuff. And I think that there's no time limit on like how long they knew each other for the relationship to blossom. But I could be wrong. Again, I don't remember like our sequence of events, like what happens within the week and what happens after we're all good.
Right, right. I hear you.
So I think I need to rewatch the fully kind of weigh in on that. But I'd like to say, even if it is like within like 3 to 4 days, maybe I don't know. Maybe it's earned still. I mean, again, I like seeing them together. I like just seeing like
Generally speaking, I can't really put my finger on the issue, but I think it has something to do with like I would say it's a little too fast paced. I just think like, because I agree with you. Like I like their chemistry. I think there's chemistry there. I just think we arrive at certain beats within the relationship a little too quickly.
Do you think the I guess I don't know if ticking clock's the right word here, but do you think the let's just call it a ticking clock? Do you think the ticking clock with the father in terms of like the idea that he really needs to retire, and he's basically getting ready to pass this on to Ember, and Ember is seemingly doing better because the relationship with Wade, she's a lot more patient with people and everything, kind of taking a little bit of what he's been kind of throwing her way. The whole thing of like in a few days I'm going to retire and you get to inherit the place.
Uh-huh.
Do you think we're like the whole like him being really encouraging? Do you think we're like in the editing, like we're maybe fast tracking that more than we should, or is it that fine? You think?
I mean, honestly, that's a good question because I kind of feel like I kind of feel like that's the part of the story that I am more invested in.
Yeah, because it's very important. I want to be clear. I love
Right.
that, and I love that
But
dilemma that we
because
get.
I am more invested in that side of the story, I feel like it does kind of like actively take away from how invested I am in just the Wade and Ember getting together side of it.
Yeah. All right, so we have someone from the Farmiga School of Acting in this film. We have Wendy McLennan Covey as Gale the Cloud.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so of course, Beverly Goldberg, who I would equate to being kind of the Jewish equivalent to Norma Bates from Bates Motel. So we're at the Cyclone Stadium and everything, and we see the effect that Wade has on people and kind of rallying the troops and everything. So that gives them the whole let's fix okay. Here's the biggest call of BS I do want to lob against this movie. Though. I'm going to call this out. It's for a gag, but I don't buy it in terms of the stakes of this movie. It's the fact that hey. The construction crew was was stuck in cement once, so they refused to help. It's your job to fix a giant leak in a dam for the city. Okay, okay.
Okay, I will say, Dragon, the leak subplot, that to me is definitely like the messiest part of the movie from a plot point of view.
I mean, there's a missed opportunity there too with the fact that okay, so the elitist water people are just casually going around. It's spilling over this giant hole. It's in the dam that they keep flooding, and it's flooding into the worst place possible, the fireplace. Like that's an aspect we really should have called out. We really should have maybe in dialogue. So there's really carefree. Look at this.
Yeah, I honestly like the whole plot just it's like I really wasn't a fan of the puns in this movie, but I don't really feel like the puns really, like are intrusive at all to the overall flow of the film. This plot though, I don't know. There's something about it that just doesn't sit right with me. Like I feel like it reeks of like first draft syndrome. Either first draft syndrome or like something was altered late into the run. Like it feels, I don't know. It just feels like it's not well thought out,
Yeah, it does. I think the issues
like what you said about how we should have drawn way more focus to like the cultural divide between the water people and the fire people, and the water people being basically apathetic and essentially not even really registering that this is happening to the fire people. That absolutely should have been underlined for sure without question.
We have one moment in the movie as it exists now in which Ember calls out Wade's family and being like right before he follows and they have their nice little emotional catharsis. She calls out that he's never had to worry about anything because he's kind of essentially born with a silver spoon in his mouth, essentially. So that's the closest we get to that in this movie, and it just feels like we have like a very visual symbol and reminder and threat to her family.
I feel like this is where the Zootopia comparisons really do not work in this movie's favor, because if this movie was more in line with Zootopia, those issues would be very underlined. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's like a balance because you don't want it to be too preachy, but by the same token, like these are things we do have to address, especially in a movie that's intentional, that's really supposed to be guess who's coming to dinner.
Well, I guess my problem with the leak plot line, if I were to put it into so many words, is I feel like it is a very big issue that is not necessarily given the gravity that the issue really warrants, if that makes sense.
Basically, we're solving it too literally.
Yeah.
It's like, it seems like, okay, the leak is, honestly, you know what it might be, T? It's too easy a problem to fix. Big hole, plug the hole, get the construction crew actually to go there, seal the hole off.
Yeah, right.
Because really, all we need is
it's like with the solution that they give, with the glass. Like, I'm just like, okay, like just knowing screenwriting at all, it's like that thing isn't going to hold, and then the third act, it's going to break.
Yeah, like the thing too is like tempered glass. Like again, I'm not really I'm not really a metallurgist or anything. I was wondering. I know this probably doesn't fall into metallurgy, but then again, I don't know. The point of the whole glass blowing thing. I know they hit it with like a hammer, but still tempered glass or bulletproof glass. Even there's all that the force of that water. I mean, it did feel like it seems like it's like Chekhov's glass. It
Exactly,
seems like
totally.
Chekhov's glass, but it feels like the logic of like, don't you think they would actually like again? Someone's getting fired.
To me, I feel like I feel like in the script it was like meant to be suspenseful, but for me it was honestly just more annoying that nobody was acknowledging that was a very temporary fix.
I just really, I don't. It just it's the biggest sticking point I have in the movie. I still when I was in the theater, I didn't buy like really the
Yeah,
construction guys aren't going to do their
yeah,
jobs. They're
yeah,
not
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
seal that like that. That's what baffled me.
Like I said, it just like I don't. There's something about the script that just went weird with that plot
I mean,
line.
look again. I don't want to look. I'm not trying to get into the whole things going on right now with the employment status of Pixar or anything. But I will say this.
Did it feel AI generated?
No, don't say that.
I'm
Not
sorry.
right now. Not while we're talking. That anyway. No, didn't feel AI generated. What I'm getting at is Lightyear. On Lightyear, Angus McLean. We know this from the behind the scenes and everything. I'm not saying like speculate. I mean, you can watch it on the DVD.
Uh-huh.
Behind the scenes, we know for a fact he had a fork in the road story decision, and I would attest he made the wrong decision. It was his first time directing a feature. I mean, he directed shorts excellently. He's a splendid animator, but he made a story decision, and I wonder if maybe something happened here. So because of that, because this is Pete Sohn's first feature from start to finish,
Right,
not
right.
in terms where he kind of like the layout was generated. And I don't know how much control he had. Plus, that was kind of tag team directed too. It was kind of technically three directors on that. Technically, my point is it feels there is a little bit of there's an unfinished quality to it perhaps in that regard of maybe the choice of a green director or maybe just like a first draft sort of thing where maybe a guy was feeling his oats in the chair and just kind of directing it like okay I mean this is a good visual issue and I don't know if maybe in other drafts of this thing we won't know until I guess the Blu-ray the DVD or whatever comes out like maybe we were going to call out, the spillover. Maybe the whole construction workers thing does feel very much like okay, we need to write an excuse for why we're not fixing. It feels very much like an expository gag.
Sure, sure.
It feels a little too telegraphed. Like okay, we really didn't have many reasons for why we couldn't just seal this up because if we seal up, the movie's over. We can't do that. So I don't know. So it feels a little like maybe we kind of picked the blue pill and we should pick the red pill, sort of moment.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see.
I do think we should probably highlight just like we talked about it a little bit, but we should probably highlight just the technical achievement that is the animation on Wade.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. We have, of course, one of the most difficult things, notorious. So technically, they kind of all the things that are difficult to do in animation. This is so funny. I heard somewhere there was like a record broken with this movie in terms of, I don't know if it was the render farm necessarily, but I guess basically in terms of like computer storage that Pixar has had over the years. In terms, I'm just going to make the leap and say it was the render farm.
Mhm.
Essentially, the computing power that they need, render farm or no, that they started with in Toy Story, they have well surpassed. Like if it went to like less than let's say at most 50,000, let's say at most, probably a little under that from Toy Story. Let's say from where they've started there to like Nemo is probably like somewhere around. I kind of skimmed this once. It was like tens of thousands to maybe let's say it went up to like tens of thousands. To now, this movie is like hundreds of thousands.
Right, right.
Because they're working on all the things that are most difficult to bring to life in computer animation. We've ever since The Incredibles is when we first integrate all these elements to now going full tilt. The characters themselves are comprised of these elements, and they have to interact. And here's the real challenge.
I feel like it's kind of like an evolution of what we were talking about with the Finding Nemo flex of setting a movie in water.
Yeah, okay, hold my drink. In a picture of water. But yeah, it's the fact that we've done all things that are hard computer animation. We just keep raising the bar, and now it's like the characters themselves are comprised of these elements, and even more so, they're gonna have to interact with each other, and even beyond that, it's gonna be like forget oil and water. We got fire and water, and I gotta get romantic. They gotta get touchy feely. And how do we visualize that? And how do we not? Then we have to deal with the
To be
semantics
fair,
of.
I do think the way that we visualize that is probably one of the strongest visuals and moments of the whole film. I
I
think.
agree. I love how we build to it. So I love this
Yeah, yeah.
insane challenge that we like. Pixar was crippled by trash bags once. Trash. No, seriously, that's no joke. They were
I
crippled by
know, I
trash
know.
bags. Toy Story 3, Toy Story 3. But it's the fact that we get to this point now where it's the two of them intersecting. The whole movie is basically the animator's fear personified of like, what's going to happen when we touch? We build to it. It's the big plot point of the movie. It's awesome.
And again, like, make no mistake, this movie is not as artistically ambitious as Spider-Verse, and absolutely not as ambitious story-wise as Spider-Verse. But I do think way more credit needs to be given to the technical achievements of this movie on its own merits. Because Wade is definitely like the centerpiece as far as the technical achievements go.
Also, the fabric in the clothes interacting with.
Right.
For example, one of my favorite details in the movie with the animation is I love all the fire people. They're wearing essentially fire blankets, but like
The fire people, just in general, I love the look of them. I love the fact that
2D
their faces
face.
are kind of 2D.
Yeah, like the nose and everything.
Uh-huh,
Like it's constantly moving though.
Right, like that alone, like I mean, I feel like it's got some Spider-Verse energy as far as, the way that you've got these two like radically different textures and compositions interacting with each other. And like I said, it's like it's like the way that we animate Hobie, for example, in Spider-Verse, that is just fucking groundbreaking and probably beyond either of these two characters as far as just like stylistic achievement. But again, like, this movie really deserves more attention in its own right for being able to do the things that it does.
Yeah. And also, I want to mention too, like Pete Docter, I think in all the press and everything's going to mention that he's seen Spider Verse. The animators, they love Spider Verse. So it's not like a competition sort of thing. It's like just the animators enjoying the work of other animators too. So they're realizing the bar has been raised, and we're getting there.
I do want to highlight a little bit more of the crying game scene, just because I really think that was the moment that really sold me on Wade's character.
Well, yeah, the fact that he made her cry, and
well, not just that he made her cry, but I really like how uplifting he is as a person. And
it's so funny that he's played by that nice man in that terrible Jurassic World movie.
Yes, it's a weird actor choice.
That's the thing, though. It's the fact that, he was that really nice man in Jurassic World.
And I don't know. I just think that moment, like you said, it does it's a very kind of like, it's almost like a stock, like, I'd almost say it's a little tropey, like the Hardin character, like, I dare you to make me cry, and he does. But I don't know. I really like. To me, the reason why it got to me, and this is going to sound kind of sappy, but that is how I like to conduct myself in relationships, is that I really like to give myself to the other person emotionally and, kind of be the voice of support for them. So, granted, I have not been in very many relationships, and I have been pretty terminally single for a while now, but it did get to me, like the fact that, like, yeah, that is something to strive for in a relationship.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So, in kind of, I guess, the guest who's coming to the dinner thing, we kind of see two sides of it. We have, her meeting Wade's family, and we have Wade meeting Bernie. And Wade meeting Bernie is a very funny scene.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like they gave most of the jokes away in the trailer, but it's still very entertaining.
The idea of, like, he said he was a food inspector, though, that's
that is funny. Yeah.
That's fun. I love just the gasp in the room of like, this is, if I this is actually really good. If I just water it down, and I was like, oh, it's like, oh god, I love he like took the picture because he knew he wasn't. I love that you kind of called out like the little bit of like all the water guys look the same, so he took a picture of them just to be sure. He got so angry, he grabbed like the little camera. that he had.
Yeah, no, that was honestly one of the best emotional punches in the movie when it's like he goes in the center of the band for life wall.
He circles him too. I love the fact this feels so realistic that okay, so when people are really banned for life, he's gonna get so upset he's gonna reach for like
right.
reach for a little camera somewhere. He's gonna take a picture. He's gonna pin it in a wall. That's great. So also, so with Wade's family though, with the Catherine O'Hara character with Brooke, Brooke gets.
I honestly think she was, besides the core four characters of Ember's parents and then Ember and Wade, I think Catherine O'Hara was definitely the biggest standout in the movie for me.
I do think the runner of drip 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 was a little much.
A little much. I honestly think it's just going to kind of be like a subjective comment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yes, it's subjective.
On.
I don't know. Maybe it'll grow me on a rewatch for all you know, too. I don't know. But that's.
I mean, honestly, Catherine O'Hara was really the one that was giving me Norma Bates energy.
Well, look, I'm just saying in general when the McClellan Company is.
Oh no, I know you're absolutely right. Like, I mean,
you're right in terms of like, yeah,
that character is honestly the closest thing we have to like a continuation of what we love about Norma Bates.
Yeah, but, Beverly Goldberg. It's
yeah.
We're gonna get it. It's 80s Norma,
right? Basically.
Yeah.
But
imagine Vera Farmiga playing Norma Bates with big hair.
Oh my god.
It's wearing like workout.
Dude, just do a Bates Motel reboot, but just in a different time period. I'd be all over that shit.
That'd be great if we did like a WandaVision like version of Bates Motel.
Oh my god, hell yes.
Of course, we have the 50s and the 60s covered.
Just each season is just like a different era.
Let's do it like how stupid Riverdale cut out over time. Let's just do it that way.
All right.
Last season, Riverdale apparently they actually time traveled into the Archie times. That's what.
Oh no! Oh god!
I'm not kidding. They did that.
No, I believe you.
Anyway. So, but yeah, no, seriously though, Brooke gives us a really interesting out here where she gives the glass making internship, where it's a really great realization that makes sense. Like, hey, you make glass. Hey, water people live in glass. Everything they own is glass.
Right.
So yeah, plus they're always probably dropping stuff too. So glass work very, very important. So she has an out of like of a desire, like maybe she doesn't want to work at the shop because as we've seen, I like that we showed this that. She wanted it to make her father proud, in a sense. We can't use that here. Never mind. So, sorry, I just realized, no, we can't use that here. No, regardless, though. I love the fact that we saw that she's trying to make her father proud, and she can't, dealing with the customers has been a point of frustration. Even though she's getting better at it, you get a sense that deep down, it's like something she's not really thrilled. It's like the thing is kind of making her disenfranchised. So there's that, and it's the fact that this is like a really great effort for her to kind of channel something kind of creative she does like on a reflex. It's easy for her to do, and it kind of makes her feel useful, and it doesn't really have to deal with the public in the sense of the customer is always right, just in the sense of like hey, I'm making something for that it's going to help people. So we give her an out, and that she's. I love how she perceives this, and it's a very relatable thing where you're kind of caught in a rock and a hard place. And I don't want to get into the details, but yeah, I do. I feel Ember's pain throughout this whole movie.
Yeah, I definitely think this was. Like I said, forget the leak storyline. I think that this whole dilemma of like if I take this, I'm essentially dooming my father to not retire. But if I don't take this, I'm giving up my dream. Dragon, that is a goddamn really good Pixar personal stakes. I mean, honestly, some of the best we've had in a while for a Pixar movie.
And I love how she voices the dilemma too, in terms of she's in an untenable position right now. And Wade's trying to be there for her, but he's also saying, look, you got to make a decision for you, not for him, for you. And he's not saying do that. Right. He's just essentially saying, hey, you got to make a decision here. So that also, I like how we keep ratcheting up like the importance of we have two major things that happen to her to really put the pressure on her not to go with the glass making. We learn we learn the Bao story. Oh, the Bao story is so gut-wrenchingly impactful. I love everything about this bow thing, Tiki. I love the pain in that flashback. Just like,
Mhm.
we lost, they lost the store, the original fireplace, and his father refused the bow.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and the fact that he never saw him again. It's like, oh my god, it's so heart wrenching. And then, just to make things even worse, he's like, "Hey, I had a little gift for you. It's the sign. I made the sign for you. Ember's fireplace.
Right, right.
Visual
It's like,
symbol of the
shit, my name is literally up in stone.
and he had that made special.
And
Oh, boys, if that
then he
movie
just
had
keeps emphasizing it like, I can't wait to retire so my daughter Ember can run the store.
oh yeah. So on the flip side, that Wade and her, like Wade's getting on her good side too here, where he's doing the impossible. He allowed her. Speaking of heartbreaking flashbacks, the Wisteria flower, the
Uh-huh.
Vivisteria flower. That was a really great. I loved how we played that flashback. It's another relatable thing where sometimes you might have parents that are gonna have those unflattering moments that might take you away from it, especially if you're, I guess, perhaps like an immigrated parent status of sorts. Where it's like, hey, fire's being discriminated against. You can't see the Vivisteria flower, even though it's like an indestructible flower, essentially.
Sure, sure.
And I love that he found a way to kind of get her to see that in a really impossible way. It's like, hey, I'm going to put you in this bubble, and you're going to see it, and the fire burns up the air in the bubble. So yeah, that again, that leads to as one of our associates would put it, steamy passion, as he's put in the description of this thing. Yeah, so we have like the big moment where they take the gamble, because we've built up to this movie when water hits fire, it's not good. It's like they have to eat like some wood chips and they kind of regain the flame.
Mhm.
There is danger here. There's risks, but yeah, they took it slow, man. They did it. They did impossible. Yeah, a little hand touch going on there. A little
And I got to admit, Dragon, I do think that that is some really good kind of like illogical logic, like visual metaphor for just the idea of taking it slow in a relationship.
yeah, take it slow, and again, like it's kind of like a push and pull sort of thing where they're not like just one's not domineering over the other one.
Mhm.
That's where that would lead to death in this case. Um, yeah, so let's see. So of course, Wade he wrecks the ceremony. They're trying to force a family catharsis, which does not go well. However, I love that before that the mother learns about these two crazy kids, and we have this great scene which during her matchmaking ceremony, which I love this scene so much. I love the little nod to Toy Story where he aligns the light through
Yup,
her.
yup, yup.
He lights the rocket. In this case, he lights the fuse.
Yeah, that's really fun.
Wow, how funny it was that the mother interacting with that doorman. How great was that doorman?
Oh, I mean, I just think the mother in general, like I said, it very much subverted my my expectations based on the trailer, where I love the fact that about halfway through the movie, the mother is like very much on the side of Ember and wanting these two to get together.
I mean, the
Like,
nose doesn't
like the
lie.
mother wants these two to get together more than Ember does.
Yeah. So, let's see. Okay, so we talked about, speaking of like one matchstick moment to another. Let's talk about the actual matchstick moment of the films. We have the big old flood.
Mhm.
Big flood happens, and this again with the whole stakes of like, will the place be destroyed or not? Where it's like, no, the place isn't going to be shut down, but again, you definitely don't want this place to be destroyed after learning what the father's gone through
And
to
then just the
reopen this
personal
place.
stakes of not the flame.
Yeah, exactly. The blue flame is very key and symbolic. I think that's the piece of home that he took with him. So that goes. It's like that. There's the father period, and then there's the flame, and then there's the shop. So that's kind of in terms of the importance.
Mhm.
So the matchstick moment in this film, matchstick moment, of course, in a Pixar film, being like you, the audience member, are convinced you know exactly how it's going. You're led down the path. Okay, well, our character's going to do this, and they're going to be fine. And then we kind of take that off the table, and then we force a really interesting solution in our climax. So in this, it's the chimney escape where they're in the red brick thing. We've saved the flame.
Yep.
They're kind of trapped in there. And say, okay, just go up the chimney, and then it's blocked, and they're trapped, and that leads to the Frosty the Snowman fate.
I do really like the idea that like ultimately like throughout the movie it has been Ember who has been more worried about water like putting her out, But then I like the idea that ultimately Wade is the one who is more in danger of the fire.
I love the realization. Now, there is a question of should we have revived Wade, and you want him to be revived because you care about
Like,
him.
honestly, if this wasn't billed as a romantic comedy, I would say maybe not, but I don't know. I honestly, I feel like in this situation, I wouldn't have been satisfied with not having him revived, honestly.
Because that's the thing. It feels like, we've learned our lesson, but at the cost of the character really didn't bring anything. I mean, that's the thing. It wasn't like a sacrificial thing in terms of he needed to learn his lesson. No, that's the thing. Wade's kind of a static character when you look at it in the movie. He's kind of a static character. He doesn't need the change. Ember needs the change because she's the main character. So, but the sacrifice that he's willing to make for her, though, and again, I think it does earn a lot of points in the relationship as well, in terms of, okay, it's a very earned relationship, these two getting together, and he's willing to sacrifice that for her, and she kind of sees that in the worst possible moment she could realize that. And yeah, but thankfully, much like Ash from the Pokemon movie, we revive him with tears. We revive him with tears.
Dragon, my audience was cracking the fuck up at this moment, and I still don't really know if that was appropriate or not. What do you think?
Well, I mean, the band gag is funny. Just say something for the water, but maybe this is the moment.
I honestly think it was the voice acting. It was the whole like.
Yeah, that makes sense. Was there a lot of kids in your audience?
So, yeah.
No, I mean, were there kids in your audience?
Yes, I think it was mostly kids.
That's the thing. Oddly, my audience, because again, I was expecting a barren turnout. There was a turnout. I think there were kids, but not as many as you think.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
I think my audience was like mostly like the 2 rows behind me were mostly filled, but that was about it.
I had something similar too. I had kids behind me.
So I think it was kind of like, like more than I would like. It wasn't a dead theater, which was nice, but it certainly wasn't a full theater either.
It's funny though. I mean, I've told you this before. With Solo, one of the fun audience experiences I had.
Yes.
It was like, I was jazzed out of my mind that like there's like this initially seeming like, oh god, it's gonna be an audience full of kids, but
right.
This audience full of kids, thankfully, was the second watch and not the first time. It was just the fact that all those kids were like, they dug the romance, right? They dug, like, Han and Kira, it was like, yeah.
That is honestly one of the most endearing stories you've ever told.
I know. I just love the fact of like, oh man, that's so nice. They went for it.
I feel like that's your version of my. Would you like to try the school bread?
A little bit, yeah. It's a little bit school bread. Okay, so we have an earned kiss. I like that we wait for the whole movie until we get to the kiss here.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, they took it slow. There's the hand touch. The Tarzan gives the thumbs up to, and then we have the earned kiss.
Uh-huh.
All right, so at the end of this movie, I think is utterly perfect. I love that we go full circle with the boat. That they're going to go away to sail to the glass, do the glass job, and daughter paying tribute to father with the bow. I thought was just utterly moving and perfect. And the other thing too, the factor in this movie as well is that Pete Zone they addressed it at the very end during the. It's not a post credit thing; it's kind of a post credit tribute sort of thing. Pete Zone did lose his parents because the movie took so long to make, and there's like a little like in memoriam thing for him at the very end, and they're very key, obviously, with like Bernie and Cinder, and while he's making this movie and talking about this movie, it's a very emotional thing for him, as you can probably imagine. So, knowing that, even I think it adds even extra significance to this moment, just this little bow of respect between these two, and the fact that's right where the movie ends. I thought that was just this brilliant choice. I love that. Choice.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Now we have nice credits going on too, where it's like we see like little misadventures, where like our fire family is integrated to like Wade's family and everything, and our guys are traveling the world. Like things are good.
I honestly think like it's probably never going to happen given the box office, but this is one of the Pixar movies I honestly wouldn't mind seeing like a TV spinoff of.
I heard. Now, don't quote me on this. I heard this somewhere. I heard like an interview somewhere that there was. I don't know if post credit's the right word, but I don't know if it was supposed to be the. Based on how this movie ends, I don't know if it was like something was tacked on the end, or maybe it was saved for the very end or not. There was a decision they were flirting with. They decided not to make where Wade and Ember might have had a baby. Like they would have come back, not like they would have come back from the trip with like a little steam baby. I don't know how true that is. Don't quote me on that, but
the steam baby, that's adorable.
So the idea is that there was like a little dangling thread in case there were room for us. There was like a little sequel baity kind of thing of like if we come back, they'll be.
I'm kind of glad they didn't do that.
That's the thing. I think they made the right choice at the end of
things.
Yeah. Honestly, what I was expecting with that after hearing that is that maybe they would have put that in like the little like credit, like art of kind of credit section, like a little steam baby, and then we'll leave the audience to draw their conclusions. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If they do come back, I mean, that's probably where they would the next stage in their relationship, perhaps in some way, shape, or form, and maybe parenthood with kind of a thing. Which, of course, the generational kind of parent thing. Who knows? I don't know. Sure. But again, we ended just right.
Okay, so final thoughts. Go ahead.
I mean, look, again, Elemental's not perfect. It's getting an undue amount of hate or judgment. I feel, but they get a sense from people who haven't really like actually sat with the movie and actually formed an opinion. You just get a sense, just people saying, "Well, it didn't make a lot of money." It's like, well, that's not. You know how many great movies didn't make money? Like, look at all these Oscar movies. None of them made money.
Exactly.
Come on, I'm not saying it's an Oscar movie, but still, it's the same principle. so that's what I'm saying. I'm very pleased with what Pete Sohn did.
No Bad Land was really burning up the box office, Dragon.
Oh, of course. I mean, it's still, little houses were bought with that movie, Tiki.
Oh God! All right.
Houses and parking pads were bought and made with that movie. Summer homes were abolished. So no, seriously. Look, this movie again. It's not perfect, but it's it's personal. It's Pete Sohn's vision. I'm glad he was able to realize it. And I respect the heck out of this movie for what it was and the fact that it was the hard sell and they carried it to the finish line. And I mean, I look forward to rewatching it. I really do. I'm interested to learn more about about the movie in terms of production side and just rewatch it and see how it stacks up. And I still got quibbles. I still got qualms. I don't think it's going to be fixed overnight, but still, it's I think it's still Pixar, making a movie they wanted to see, and I think this is I thought the end result was good, just not like breaking the ceiling like they tend to they've done in their heyday.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page with you. There are certainly moments and elements of this movie that I do love. Overall, I would say it's probably like just scraping the top half of Pixar if I were to rank it, but there's certainly a lot of movies that, like probably all of the Cars franchise, if I'm being honest with you, maybe not Cars 1. Probably, Good Dinosaur, Brave. There's definitely a handful that I think are decidedly worse than this movie. And I think that, honestly, Dragon, like I said, I do think that ultimately with the plot details and the fact that the real building's not quite as fleshed out as it could be, and the fact that we don't explore some of the plot as much as we could, ultimately, I think Zootopia is probably the thing that hurts this movie the most as far as like a one-to-one comparison. But I do think there is a lot to like about it. And I do think that the big thing that's really a shame about this movie as far as the reception goes is that it is a genuinely very impressive looking and technically realized animated achievement. And no, it is not as groundbreaking as Across the Spider-Verse, but Dragon, this is very much an attitude that I have kind of taken like ever since Puss in Boots came out, where it's like not every movie has to be as groundbreaking as that. Not every animated movie has to be as groundbreaking as that. So yeah, overall I do very much enjoy this, but I also look forward to rewatching it. Not Pixar's strongest. Ultimately, I think it's I don't know. I think it's probably like on par with Turning Red and Luca. As far as like both of those movies also have elements that I'm not crazy about, but elements that I really, really like as well. I think Onward is probably better than this. I think Soul is this is probably an unpopular opinion. I probably like Soul a little less than this. But yeah, overall, very strong movie that's just being kind of like overshadowed by a lot of other stuff. Okay. Well, big thanks to Code Geese Anime Fan for joining us in the comments. Let's see, Drag. We got a lot of stuff going on this week. We're continuing Spielberg month. We took a 1 week hiatus from the animated Batcave, or Batcave Beyond, I should say. Yeah. But we are going to be back with that tomorrow. Looking forward to diving back into there, watching through all of Batman Beyond for the first time in my case. Let's see, Dragon. You guys got we got Secret Wars.
Secret Invasion, Tiki.
God damn. Okay, you know what? That's Marvel's fault for doing the titles, not my fault. It's confusing.
That's what the comics are called. That's what the stories are called.
Okay, we got Secret Invasion. I'm sorry. We got Secret Invasion coming up this week. And yeah, you guys are continuing Phineas and Ferb. Lots of good stuff coming up this week. So yeah, stay tuned, folks. Have a good night. Get out of here, Claude! You and your stupid armpit flowers.